Thanks, Jeff. It's great to be with you all today. As you mentioned, we've been in multiple cities now. We've been in Houston, Minneapolis, and this is in San Jose. This is our fourth this year. So I'd like to bring up Devin Campbell. He's one of the original. He was in the Roadshow in 2019. Is that right? Come on up. We're gonna now have the panel discussion, and let's have Joanne LeBrun. Am I saying her last name correctly? All right. Mark Alpert. This is a choose your own adventure. Choose where you want to sit. Chester Barres and Amit Narang. Hopefully I got the last names correct. So we're going to be talking about just the future of medtech and tackling challenges. I kind of like to be able to see everybody. So, I'll try to look at you as well, but I'm always really curious what they're saying too. When he talked about I'm a big deal, it's not the podcast is a big deal because of the people who are on the podcast, and there's some fantastic knowledge that's been shared. So same as today, I'm excited to talk to everybody today. Let's start. Maybe we can start with you, Amit, and just come down and give a quick introduction and maybe an origin story of where you came from and where you're going.
Sure. All right. How much time do you guys have?
1 minute.
So my name is Amit Ring. I work for KPMG Life Sciences Advisory. I have a decade of experience within quality management systems. I have helped a lot of medical device and pharmaceutical companies implement their digital quality ecosystem. So look forward to discussing and look forward to speaking with you guys today. And Elliot, I'm only here because of you. Thank you for having me. You are a big deal.
Thank you. And it's one of the first times people would call me Elliot, so I'm flattered.
That's
Chester.
That's okay. I walked up to the last show we had with was Joanna Parker, so that I think you did him a solid.
I did him a solid.
Yeah. All right, Chester Burris here. I have nearly 30 years experience in the active implantable medical device class 3 area. Cut my teeth on pacemakers, implantable defibrillators. Went into a vagus nerve stimulator company shortly after that. Dabbled in the LVAD space. Went into another vagus nerve stimulator company. One was for epilepsy. The second one was for stroke. Took it from feasibility animal studies all the way through FDA approval. And then this whole time I was working with the Valentium folks. The founders and I go way back. I was sort of advisor over the last 10 years or so. And then I was brought on board for business development and systems engineering about a year and a month ago. So I too am very excited to chat with all of you guys and see what you have going on. It's always exciting to hear what all the new efforts are out there.
Thank you, Chester. Mark?
Good afternoon, everybody. I too am excited about talking with you all this afternoon. My name is Mark Alpert. I am the director of QA and RA at Greenlight Guru, so responsible for the internal quality management systems and compliance within our own company. And we utilize the same tool. For those of you that put your hands up about being Greenlight Guru customers, utilize the same tool that you do, the same software platform we use internally to manage our own regulatory and quality systems activity. So I've been with Greenlight for 2 years and spent the 25 years before that on the dark side. I worked for a regulatory agency, test and certification house called TÜV SÜD. Maybe you've heard of them, the German entrant into the whole notified body activity, and that was part of their North American startup. And so I helped to grow the product testing and management system certification notified body activity here throughout the Americas. So look forward to the conversations.
Fantastic. And I have been told you've got to get in there and approve your change order. So we use Greenlight Guru. It's really fantastic. Joanne.
Hi, can everybody hear me? Does this work? Okay, great. I have a little bit different because I have nothing to hook a little pack to. So I'm handheld. That's the only thing that makes me special on that one. My name is Joanne LeBrun. I work for MDC Associates Incorporated. We're located north of Boston here in Beverly, Massachusetts. I've worked for MDC for over 23 years now. We work with a lot of startup companies and IVD companies. We kind of do the big trifecta. We assist people in developing quality systems. We assist people with developing regulatory strategy and also achieving regulatory clearance for products and also CRO services or clinical research services, clinical studies and things like that. So we have worked with hundreds of clients, startup, mid-size, big size, with quality systems, without quality systems. We've helped people get out of trouble. So if you're in trouble, let me know. We're very, very successful in doing that, and we keep you out of trouble. That's probably more than getting you out of trouble. And so, yeah, that's pretty much me and my company.
Fantastic. Devin?
Hi, I'm Devin. So I'm a mechanical engineer. I'm a design engineer. I've been in the industry since the 90s. I have been fortunate enough to have had some pretty good success during that time frame. After my second of 3 exits, I started my own advisory services group, surrounded myself with people that I've worked with for decades, and we exclusively reach out to try to bring the same successes that I've been fortunate enough to experience to other entrepreneurs and other startups. Medical device is hard. It's a really, really hard industry to be in. And as a startup, if it's your first time, it's scary. And we're there to try to help those teams get through, build the infrastructure you need, thinking about quality systems, operations, risk management, and product development. In those 4 areas, we help build the infrastructure and say, this is what it's going to look like for the next 2 years, the next 3 years. How do we build the right teams? How do we help you as new CEOs and as new chief operating officers or as first-time scientists in a company like this? How do you deal with a lot of the anxiety and the scariness that comes with the industry? That's what we specifically reach out to try to do.
Thanks, Devin. And since you were last, I'll let you go first on this next question, because this question kind of pertains to what you mentioned, being in the industry since the 90s and on. What are some of the changes you've seen, and more specifically, and a question for everybody, what do you see as one of the top business objectives for medical device companies or challenges that they'll be facing in the near future? If you can pin it down to one, what would you identify that as?
It hasn't changed at all. Yeah. Next question. I mean, the change is constant for us, right? I mean, it's kind of hard to like pin it down to how much things changed since the 90s. I think like driving efficiency so we can really focus on effective and safe products and not have so much bureaucracy involved with things like quality systems when they were paper and stuff like that. And not just from a Greenlight Guru type perspective, but take that spirit throughout. There's a lot that we've been putting into, like, let's do things smart, and take away a lot of the roadblocks and the hurdles so that we can do the work that we need to do to be able to benefit patients. I think we've really focused on that, and we keep getting better.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree, Devin. I think, everything's changing all the time. The requirements are changing, regulatory requirements are changing, the world is changing. We're just coming off of a pandemic, which changed a lot of different things. And so I think we just, living in that world of change is really difficult to be able to do, or something to be able to train yourself as a company to be able to handle, so that you're not steadfast in one direction, but you're nimble enough to be able to handle that change. I think that's really important. And I agree that, the efficiency and the time to market gets better and better. And there's been a lot of developments lately that have sort of helped in that. And so I think, with efforts like EQMSs and particularly Greenlight Guru in the design control and risk management areas, it really takes a lot of the man work, the woman work, the hand work, the sweat work out of the effort. And so you can have less people. We have a couple of people who are here who are users, and they're a department of one. That's super scary, as you said. That's really scary when you're in a department of one. What do I do? What do I have? But Greenlight Guru provides a department for those people, which is really great. So I think that's really where we see a lot of the change coming through.
Mark, I'm going to change the question for you. Looking at your background, you mentioned TUSUD, now Greenlight Guru, working in the industry. What are some things that you wish you had known maybe when you were working on that side? You said the dark side. Now that you've been rehabilitated, what are some things, if you could give advice to somebody interacting with those notified bodies?
Oh, so the first thing that comes to mind is align or pick or coordinate or whatever the right word is with your notified body early. As you know, for those of you that are trying to get through the regulatory requirements to get your products out to markets around the world, there are bottlenecks. We just were able to have some of the tension alleviated by extending some of the deadlines, but still, there is only a handful of notified bodies that are in a position to do this work. They are busy, and you need to develop that relationship early, and you got to stop thinking like you can't approach them and you can't talk to them and it's a one-way communication. Absolutely not true. You've got to be willing to have start the communication, involve them. All that will only help raise the level of confidence of your notified body and the work that's going on within your organization. And the more they can appreciate what's going on within your organization, the better, I shouldn't say the faster, the smoother, the better this process will go. So if there's one thing, and that has changed. There were a lot more notified bodies years ago than there are now. Mm-hmm. So there aren't just enough engineers out there to get through all the work that needs to be done. And so it's the first thing that pops into my mind, start early.
We love having Mark because he's example that they're human beings over there. So it's great. It's great to have him as a living example here. I'll change the question for you slightly too. So during our MedTech benchmark study of 613 MedTech professionals earlier this year, one of the biggest problems people were facing was scalability of manufacturing. And I wonder how you would address that when people are talking about that concern, considering your background in manufacturing, Chester.
Yeah, I think also it although it's a different topic, it sort of lends, Mark's point basically says start early, right? You have to have a plan, and you got to, have your best projection possible, and also using third parties that are out there to get you through your manufacturing and your scalability. The industry has expanded into so many different silos right now. It's amazing. It used to be just big giants, right? But there are regulatory folks, there's quality folks, a lot of great manufacturing folks out there that can do it for you. And so for scalability, you want to make sure that you get with someone who actually vet their folks, vet their capabilities, vet their processes, and make sure they and also ask them, if they were you, what would you do? And that'll get you over the scalability hurdle, a lot easier.
And Amit, so Amit actually sent over some slides, which was fantastic. I told him we're not going to use them, but I did have a question from one of them. He was fantastically prepared. One of the things that he mentioned in one of his slides was the evolution of a QMS from maybe paper-based and reactive to proactive to maybe even using machine learning. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that. And if anybody else wants to touch on this subject, feel free. But Amit, do you want to?
Yeah, I actually welcome it. Yeah. Thank you, Edwin. I appreciate it. I'm going to use a real life example, all right, within this room, actually. So how many of you are students? All right. Okay. So there's a difference between reactive and proactive quality, right? That's something that you guys are picking up in school at this given moment. So here's the thought process. The digital ecosystem, are you going to work on a paper-based product? Are you going to have paper-based, you're going to be checking the Excel spreadsheets and everything of that sort? This is who you're building the digital ecosystem for. This is the next generation. And the reason why I say they're proactive is, in fact, they're actually at this conference trying to learn from all of us collectively. So that's why the paper-based processes are very much outdated. There are still on-premise customers, but they are converting slowly in a hybrid fashion into a digital platform, all right, such as Greenlight Guru. But more importantly, it's about the tools that are able to be leveraged, especially when you're on a digital platform, such as integration, the ability to utilize AI ML, like your post-market surveillance, for example, from a complaints perspective, right? I don't want to sit there and look at 100,000 complaints, especially from a strategic customer perspective, right? And be able to pinpoint these are repetitive complaints and I need to do investigations. I need to do a corrective action, preventative action for this. I need to have effectiveness checks for this. A lot of these things could be actually automated utilizing data integrity as long as you feed the system the right information. And the reason why I use students as the real life example is because this is where the future is headed. We need to evolve as a quality culture itself, and it needs to be embedded in every single company, whether you're a startup or whether you're a well-formed organization.
Does anybody have anything to add?
No, go ahead.
Mark,
Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, I just wanted to nerd out with you all for just a minute because to try to connect a couple, we were just talking about from a manufacturing perspective and a digital
Yeah.
platform perspective. Think about your quality management system or your quality management tasks in the future when there's a virtual twin of your production process. Or think about all of the equipment that's on the production floor that's sending all that data up to the cloud every night. What does an internal audit look like when you can continuously monitor the performance of equipment down on the floor?
Yeah.
Continuously monitor the output and the capability of the processes that are running, because all that data is going up to the cloud every night from all kinds of connected machines. And then when it's time to take some corrective action because you saw a blip, you've got a virtual twin of your production process in the cloud that you can implement that corrective action to try to then build the scenarios and understand what a decision will be at this station in your manufacturing process, how that's going to affect product 3 stations down the road, without ever going on the production floor, without ever interrupting. So you talk about timely corrective action, you talk about not wanting to interrupt work must go on. To be able to do this all digitally, pretty cool, huh?
I mean,
That's neat.
Yeah, I told my kid that he asked me, what do I do for a living? I'm not a doctor, but I help save lives. Quality management is helping save lives. What are we trying to do at the end of the day? We're trying to prevent adverse events from happening, right? And the more information, the more data that we have at our fingertips that digitally can be enabled is very much useful, all right? There's a joke around in LinkedIn that you see all the time is in terms of key performance metrics. A lot of people say it's keep people informed, especially the ones that are doing their jobs, right? So,
Devin, you had a follow-up?
Yeah, just a thought about like data in general and where it's kept. I'll often have clients where they say, oh yeah, we keep all this data. We gather this data. We put it in a spreadsheet. I like to say spreadsheets are where good data goes to die. Because you can't really mine it. You can't really make it work for you as easily as you could if the data that your production equipment is creating, your quality systems are creating, everything else on your production lines, and even forget about it, you're not even in production yet. You're just doing product development. But there's still data that's being generated by the company, by the employees, by the people working on things, doing core science in the lab. We're generating a ton of data. But if that data just goes into spreadsheets or goes into unique files and just sits there, you can't do anything really with it. You can't tell great data stories in time. And when you have it all aggregated in a thoughtful way, and you put a lot of effort into carefully constructing how are you going to manage the data that you're going to generate, it gives you the opportunity to make use of modern tools and use things like AI and ML to be able to go and interrogate it and have it help you find stories.
very well put.
That's a really good point. Clean data is you get what you put into something. I totally get what you're saying. If we kind of go back to maybe some of the tools or gaps in the market, this is one of the things that's always interesting when we bring up AI. Certain people cringe, other people get excited, I'll use one example that I'm personally a little excited about. Forgive me for the shameless plug, but Greenlight Guru just released the risk solution system where it will go crawl the mod database, look at adverse events, use Bayesian statistics to determine potential probabilities for risk. That's one of the exciting things, and that machine learning has on the horizon. But I'm curious what other tools are out there or gaps in the market that you see, or potential things that we should be thinking about and should be preparing to utilize. Because I'll just say one more thing about that. If that's dirty data in the mod database, what good is it? But we like to think it's good data, and it has to be if we're going to use it properly. So it gives you a baseline, right? So it's clean data is only clean if you put in what clean data. So what are your thoughts on those?
Well, you're
things?
trying to pull history into the modern age, and you're trying to pull data that didn't have that intention to begin with, and we both shook our head. It's not exactly clean data in the mod database. And so to be able to utilize that, yes, you can start from a certain point, but being able to go back in history is really, really challenging. And so anything with AI, it's fantastic as long as you can truly bring the information in and have that information. And it's great to be able to have, the technology needs to catch up as well. The people making the instruments on the manufacturing floor, all of that information needs to also be able to be uploaded in order to be used. I totally agree with you about spreadsheets. It is where good data goes to die, especially if it's not marked and you don't know where it came from, and
It's not traceable.
literally you can't use it anymore. So all the hard work that you're doing kind of goes for naught when it goes into those spreadsheets that aren't tracked and aren't linked to something bigger, better to be able to analyze those data. It's huge. But to be able to get there, there's definitely a lot more work to do. It's super exciting, but there's a lot more work to do for sure.
Okay. Any other follow-ups? And we can shift gears if we want to.
Just
Yeah.
just one more follow-up, right? Just from an AI perspective, I think my peers are absolutely correct from a data perspective, but also from a fairness perspective. How do you create unbiased models that you're going to be utilizing towards AI? How do you create accountability that there is going to be a life cycle that this AI can actually produce, right? What is the intended use of that? Then there's that aspect of the security and the safety, right? I mean, how many times do we hear about these, attacks that happen, the cyber threat attacks, so many companies that have happened to? You're exposing that particular data. So it's important that you're safeguarding that particular data. Then the aspect of data integrity as well that comes in, as my peers have mentioned. So all those things kind of commingle, and it's a huge responsibility. Like one of my friends said earlier, these are not robots. There's a human dependency on this. Is what you get, what you put in is what you will get out. So junk in, junk out. So it's your responsibility in order to make sure that all those core principles are actually followed.
One quick point, again, just to tie together for myself, actually, what I'm hearing, all you just heard tied into the initial question about change, regulations, regulatory affairs isn't going away, and it's only going to pick up, and there's only going to be more because of everything that you just heard. And so being prepared for that change and what's going to change, and as technology changes and as more and more data comes online, so will the regulatory side of the business. So you need to keep up with that stuff.
So that's another question I'd like to ask then, because when I think about the change in the industry, we've got, the QMSR proposal was last year. We're expecting it this year, maybe. I think you used the word aspiration earlier. EU MDR was extended. There's an omnibus bill. I was corrected. It was December 29th, I believe, that it was signed into law. Lots of things are changing in the industry. How do we keep up with those things, or how do you, as a professional, keep up? And I'd kind of like to hear from all of you in your various fields of expertise. Devin, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, you keep up. I keep up by not pretending to know all things of all pieces, but to surround myself with subject matter experts. So, for example, like we won't touch regulatory within my advisory firm. There's just too much happening there. We know our other lanes very, very well, and we know the changes that are happening there. So I think being humble can help you kind of narrow the scope of what you have to keep up with, rather than trying to say, oh my God, this is daunting. I have to keep up with everything in the world. You've got a lot of experts here just in front of you right now that have subject matter expertise and can kind of help teams narrow that down and move forward, and then educate yourself, go in really, really deep, like a T-based leader in very specific areas. That's fine, but don't try to fool yourself by saying, "Oh, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to understand everything it takes to bring a medical device to market and understand all the idiosyncrasies associated with manufacturing scale up and regulatory issues, and how do we do product development? Are we going to do agile development? Are we going to use a waterfall approach? Are we going to use this? Are we going to use that? Is this software as a medical device? Whatever. There's just so many questions to ask. And I think for me, like, try to focus in on a couple things and be really, really good in those areas, and then bring experts in for the rest of it.
Yeah, I really agree. I think bringing in experts is critical, especially from a company standpoint. It's really hard to have all your staff be experts. It's expensive, frankly. And so to be able to go to those experts and be able to capitalize on that is huge. I think how to stay abreast of what's going on in the regulatory arena is being involved in the regulatory arena. A lot of companies have difficulty because maybe you do 510K every 5 years, even every year. It's really hard to keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on Let's just take the FDA as an example, or perhaps the notified body, since we have an ex-Marine here. So, I think that being involved in it and seeing the reaction and going through a lot of different files really, really helps. We do a lot of regulatory, and being in the FDA is really, really important because we know how they're going to react. But with that being said, it's definitely in sort of that silo. We do a lot of IVDs, and we'll find that if we get something that is more of a medical device, or even combination we will do, that we're going to go somewhere different, because you know how that part of the FDA is working. Let's just go with FDA for that point. So that's sort of how we stay up on things from our perspective, is to really just keep doing it and keep being active in it, and keep understanding what that feedback is and what the FDA or the notified bodies want to see. We've got a little bit of a hiatus with the notified bodies, but it's still here. It's not here. And so, the more experience we get with that, and the more we see what that feedback is going to be, the more we're going to know how to help every one of our clients.
Really good. Mark?
Just there's not much to add. You read like hell, and you read everything you get your hands on, and you keep reading, and there's activities like this. You're members of the the appropriate associations for the field that you're in, or the topics that you're addressing. You come together with the webinars, or the reports, or the blogs, or all the good stuff that NTN puts out on a daily basis. That's how you get your arms around the information, and you talk. That's why we're here. We're here to get this community together, to learn from each other, talk to each other, and figure out what it is we don't know, and go from there.
Chester, I'll buy you some time if you want.
Oh, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, just a quick add to those. Basically, to say it another way, you've got to have the right tools and exposure to the right tools. And tools are also subject matter experts, human beings. Surround yourself. I preach this all the time with a great team, externally and internally. And then the other tools, of course, are the automated systems, the Greenlight Gurus, the quality system, all those things. Excuse me. For those of you guys who are entrepreneurs, right, there's a rule of thumb. If you're in a conversation and you hear the same question asked 3 times, there's a product right there, or there's a process right there. I've caught 2 already just in this discussion right here, right? So it's the management and verification of data, right? And it's also the lack of proactive regulatory guidance with respect to not putting together pre-subs or things of that nature with the regulatory body or notified bodies, but actually having someone to tell you which way to go to even get to that point. So I may be putting something together soon.
Fantastic. I love it when startups start on stage. Devin, you had something you wanted to follow up.
Yeah, just something that resonated that Mark said. Go read a lot of things, read blogs, read everything, anything you can get your hands on. I'd say do that, but keep it where you're curious, right? Follow your curiosity. If you're really interested in specific medical devices, or specific fields, or specific aspects of medical device development, go read as much as you can in those spaces. Let your curiosity drive you, instead of necessarily feeling daunted, because there is a glut of information that you can find out there. So there's just so much. I'd say, find a specific topic and dive into it, and just like, I'm excited by it. I really want to learn about, I don't know, pick your topic and then go into that one space and find Greenlight material. There's lots of other material sources out there, lots of great places to learn, and just let your curiosity drive you. And who knows where it's going to take you.
I love that. And I also might add, just try to teach someone else, because they might school you like someone did. I wish I had remembered who it was. I thought it was January that omnibus bill come out, but I'll never forget that it's December 29th now. So just try to teach somebody as well. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely agree with my peers. Yeah, I'm not a regulatory expert, nor do I pretend to be, unless there's a phone a friend option. I get a lifeline over here. But no, in all seriousness, in terms of reading, especially for the students over here, and even for the professionals, there's a really great thing that FDA has been doing, all right? And it's called Case for Quality. You guys can Google it. It's readily available. They even have pilot programs for companies that have actually done this, and the amount of savings that they've had, especially avoiding the FDA investigations, right? That's always a plug. And I think it's very critical. So I would encourage everybody to read that, and they have partnered with CDRH on that. So
That's
that's your first homework, to start reading on that.
That's a really good point, because that case for quality even talks about some of the cost of a 483 or things like that.
Yeah.
And we're actually working on am I allowed to talk about our ROI calculator? Okay, we have an ROI calculator coming out. I don't even know if I can do that acronym, ROI, return on investment. And that's one of the things that you can calculate. Those are hard numbers behind all of those different instances. So keep an eye out for that. Okay, I have one last question, then we'll open it up for questions from the audience. Chester's heard me ask this question before. Not everybody likes this, but I'm curious if you have a favorite failure. And also, one of the panelists told me that they were a provocateur and was going to try to start a fight, and that has not happened. I'm a little irritated. So hopefully we can get something good out of this. But one of the questions is, well, this is my question. What is one of your favorite failures? And if you want to pass, you can. I'll try to come up with one to supplement it if you don't have one. Let's start with Chester, since he's my
I
my
have
veteran.
one. It's a new one, but not a new one. It's an old one, but it's a new topic. So, being the smartest guy in the room for so long, right? That's a joke. I was pushing pretty hard for a certain software to be classified as Class B, because the particular indication didn't really. When we went through the risk analysis, there wasn't any unacceptable risk, all the things you have to go through. So I was pretty certain it was Class B. Submitted it, was good to go, but something told me I shouldn't have gone that direction, because I also had a quote ready to get it to go Class C. But mind you, this is 8 or 9 months later. We got feedback, you're actually stimulating this particular nerve. Even though your software isn't interacting with it, it's stimulating it. Right, so it's Class C. So what could have prevented that? Meeting with them ahead of time, right? That could have prevented that. Having a resource that had gone through this already, that I could have got some advice from, would have, prohibited that from happening. And that was about a $375,000 in 6 months, almost my job mistake, right? So reach out often, rely on professionals, and use your tools.
Really good. Mark, since I work with you, I'd really like to know what your mistakes are. He's my director of quality.
Well, certainly it wasn't transitioning from the certification side to the commercial side. That's been a blast. I will say how much I've learned. Actually, I don't know could you call them failures? So being the guy asking the questions for 20 some odd years and trying to find out whether or not companies have their processes captured and they're in place and they're effective, to being the guy who's being drilled by that question. It's like, oh boy, and did I do this to you guys? Did I do this to all the companies that I was at? So huge learning curve for me. Fortunately, we didn't really fail. We've been able to achieve certification on the right path. I was audited last week. It was a week and a half audit for us at Greenlight Guru. Just finished last Tuesday, and yep, and we have non-conformances that we need to address, and we will address them, because we're not a medical device manufacturing company. We're not 13485. We're a software development company. We're an ISO 9001, and we've integrated ISO 27001 for information security management systems. And yeah, we've got non-conformances, and we have to address them, and we'll get our certificate updated and be good. Keep the cycle going. But from a failure perspective, I was thinking back, like I got started way before there were notified bodies, and so was actually doing all of the 13485 auditing, all the medical device companies and audits. And as an accrediting body, we are audited by other agencies in order to be licensed to do the auditing work that we do and be recognized by competent authorities and whatnot. And I know that was a process and a half, and how many false starts we had in order to gain accreditation to be able to do what we do and learn what we did, and learn those hard lessons, and sort of learn on the fly. And it's costly. It's costly to do it that way. And there's much more effective and much more efficient ways to go about it these days, for sure.
Ahmed, I should have started with you.
It's all good.
What about you?
My biggest failure is that I wanted to be a stand-up comedian. Now I'm here, passing time at the conferences. No, but in all seriousness, I feel it's a collective failure. amongst us all. And that collective failure is that quality till this day is as looked upon as a cost center than actually a cost saving measure and life saving measure. And I think the next generation is going to focus on it not as a cost center. It's actually going to be a quality culture, and it's going to have a great impact. So I'm so excited about the future. And I think I want to thank Greenlight Guru for pioneering this aspect of it and having these discussions to educate everybody. So round of applause, job well done for that.
Joanne?
So I think it's more of sort of a common mistake as opposed to my biggest failure. And that is assuming you got it, you know, in your quality systems, particularly in the quality departments, you know, having reactionary quality. Oh, they said to do this, so we're going to do just that. Oh, we got a finding for this. We're just going to take care of that one thing. It really is a global approach to everything that you want to do. And having a company, having a quality management system that, like Greenlight Guru, gives you a lot of sort of the setup so that you don't drop a lot of those things, helps in that common mistake. Because you're not just focused on one thing. Okay, we had a finding for training. All we're going to do is concentrate on training. We're not going to look at any other data. That's a mistake, because you're just going to come right behind. Sorry to gesture to the notified body guy, but they're just going to come in behind and go, okay, you took care of that. Great. There's 20 more things you need to take care of. There's a lot more details to be able to do. And when you're just one person and you're handling your own quality system by yourself in the small companies, it really helps to be able to be reminded and have that. Perhaps it's AI, perhaps it's even just automatic tasks being assigned for certain things to remind you to do the right thing or to remind you to do the compliant thing. Assuming you've got that, I think, is the biggest mistake, because of course you're going to get audited and then find out, and then you're working backwards and you're retrospective. And, you know, the more you can try to make sure everything's covered, the less administrative you're going to work you're going to do when those people come in and do the acting or the asking.
Okay, I still feel like I don't have enough dirt on these guys yet, but Devin, do you have a favorite failure story?
You want dirt? No, I don't think I have good dirt. So I think it's natural for us when we have all these really cool tools at our disposal and software that we can use to be able to help us work through product development in medical devices and bring products to market and maintain them and monitor them and do all the work that we're supposed to do. And we have lots of great tools to be able to do that. We have to remember that the tool won't save your ass when it comes to doing work. There's real people behind it. So if you design your processes, you design your systems, you design your thinking with too much overt reliance on tools and workflow and things that you create for yourselves and just say, as long as we just do that, everything's going to work, it won't. And I've done that. So you have to remember, there are real people involved that have to carry it out, that have to do the analysis. The tool is not going to do your risk analysis for you. It might support you. It'll help you find things, but you have to do that real critical thinking. If you have a CAPA, the tool's not going to go do the investigation for you. You have to do the investigation and talk to people and learn things and figure stuff out and put it into the systems. So an over-reliance on tools and software, which I gravitate toward. I love driving efficiencies by writing code to be able to do this one thing for me, or customizing Jira to be able to like have these great workflows and just say, it's all just set up, it works. No, it's just like using a human factors approach, just like we're supposed to use for medical device development for your own internal tools as you're building it. Don't forget that you have to run it, people have to run it. And if you lose sight of that, you will struggle.
Such a
Yeah, great point.
Very good point.
I love that. Going back to some of our AI conversation, it's interesting because, you know, some people are afraid that AI is going to take white collar jobs, just like however many years ago, everybody thought robots were going to take blue collar jobs. And now we have more blue collar jobs than ever before. And I think it might be something similar. So the tools, I love that analysis. Can I ask one more question, or can we go a few minutes? Is everybody okay with going a few more minutes? Okay, you're outnumbered if you don't like this idea. One more question, because you talked about the quality being you didn't say it in these words, but quality is a competitive advantage. I am curious if you all want to just say something about that, and then I promise we'll go to the audience. Do you want to talk real quickly about quality as a competitive advantage? I know Mark, can we start with you, and then we'll spread outward?
Yes. So quality as a competitive advantage. Absolutely. It's about, for me anyway, within an organization, it's about cycles of improvement. It's about, the quality playing field has become pretty level out around the world, right? Everybody makes a good pair of skis. Everybody makes a good car. Everybody makes good clothes. Jeff Perkins is a runner. Everybody makes a good pair of shoes, but guess what? There's that pair of shoes that fit him right, that last a little bit longer, that come in the right colors, or a little wider in the toe box, or whatever. That's quality for him. Those are the shoes that he's going to pay a little bit more for, and that's quality for him. So it's about understanding quality as a competitive advantage. To me, is about understanding your customers' needs, understanding their desires, their wishes, their wants, whatever the end game is for them, helping and putting processes and putting improvements in place that help them drive, meet the goals that they've put in place for themselves in the market, and how at least at Greenlight Guru, how we help our customers achieve the goals that they've set out for in the market, right? And so understanding what those needs are, translating that into processes and procedures and things internally that help do that, provides us the competitive advantage.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's challenge our thinking for a second on, yes. You're building a company, you're organizationally thinking, I need some silos. I need regulatory, I need development, I need engineering, I need these groups, I have quality. And you maybe do calculation on, well, what does it take for us to do quality? And we have a quality department, and you're going to factor into that ROI, the number of people there and their salaries and everything else that goes into it. I kind of say that's a little bit of bullshit. Everyone has quality responsibilities. You could almost think about dissolving away the idea of a quality department. Definitely a regulatory department, but it has to do quality. And it's not one department's responsibility. It's not like, oh, I'm going to develop this and then quality takes over and does their job. No, you should be developing it with quality in mind the entire time. You don't start doing product development and then think about risk management. You think about risk management first, and you build that into everything that you're developing. So I was thinking, when we're looking at the ROI of quality, I kind of want to maybe help us dissolve away the idea of a quality group and just maybe instead embrace the idea that everyone has to do it. There might be certain people within an engineering team or different groups that have a bit more of a QE-ish role in that group, but it doesn't mean it's that one person's job. That's just the belt and suspender to make sure that we did the things that we're supposed to do, but we all have to do them.
I totally agree with you, but
good.
I do think regulatory is necessary.
No, I totally agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think quality still is necessary, and here's why. Because I think what we do, we're sort of the conductor of the symphony.
Mm-hmm.
And there are small symphonies that don't necessarily need a conductor, but someone needs to be in the lead. I was a musician for a long, long time. But if we were all one big group, someone would need to give you the downbeat and the structure of how that music is going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the quality department actually gives that backbone and of how to be able to do that and how to do it consistently and how all of us play the same game. We're all very proud. We're all very smart in this room, guaranteed. We all know how to do our own game, but we all got to play the same game. And so quality kind of brings that all together and has that happen so that all our data is feeding into the same thing, so that we're all playing the same game and we can all feed to the same level. And I think that's really where quality helps to be able to do that. As we talked about, we don't want our data to go away and die. We want our data to stay and be vibrant and be effective and valuable. I think quality really helps to be able to do that. Yeah, sometimes you have to say, you have a problem, put it on my shoulders. I am quality. I'll help you with that. So you can take on that hard thinking, but it's way better than branching off into your own thing and not involving anybody else. I think the communication is really important as well. So that's where I think quality has that return of investment is critical.
And I think it's a balance. You have to have the senior leaders there to be able to do the leading of it. But at the same time, you have to balance that versus creating an environment where people say, this is my job, that's quality's job.
Yes.
And that's what we want to break.
Yeah. Absolutely.
There are other thoughts in. So Seth Godin is the Fred Crosby of the marketing world, and he talks about marketing. One line he uses is, marketing is too important to leave up to marketing. It's everybody's job. And I think maybe we could apply that with quality here. I'll allow you one rebuttal if they have an argument, but Chester, did you want to add? And
I mean, I wish I could make an argument, but both of you guys are right. Quality is the competitive advantage, and it is a culture. And I do believe you need tools and responsible folks to drive it, on both sides. So quality policies are there for a reason. Some folks think it's there just to pass a 1345 audit, but it actually is a culture that you drive into, and you either have the right people and the right tools or you don't. You've got to fire both quickly when you identify them. So quality is a big deal.
Ahmet, you started this. Why don't you finish it?
Well, I mean, look at a real life scenario, right? How much money are you going to invest in your brand reputation? That's the same investment you should be doing in your quality, because when those recalls happen, it's not a pretty sight, and on top of that, more importantly, causes waste, causes scar, all these other actions that need to be taken. Now, think about if you actually had a quality culture, which I think my peers are alluding to, and then we've been talking about all along. I think it's a small cost to prevent a lot of bad things to happen. So it's a culture.
All right. I promised. Does anybody in the audience have a question you'd like to ask one of the panelists? Yes.
So hello everyone, good afternoon. My name is Manish Kumar. I used to be in medical device, worked with Philips Healthcare and GE Healthcare. Now I'm in aerospace, but I have a lot of liking, so came today also. So a lot of you talked about quality and quality competitive advantage, but we have not seen a widespread that a quality guy becomes CEO of a company. Look around, except the entrepreneurs or the startups. None of the quality guys have become the top. So it seems that we need
hold
to.
on. I mean, I just started my career.
Yeah. So that gives me an indication that somehow quality and cost has to go together. And once we as a quality professionals are able to framework the quality in a way that it gets connected with the cost, some of us will become CEO for a medical device. Look around medical device company. Do you see any big medical device company having quality guy CEO? No.
Oh, hold on. All right. Let's take an example, right? And I'm not trying to be over smart over here or anything of that sort, but let's just take an example, right? There's a quality component in every single thing that actually takes place, whether it's a CEO, whether it's a quality manager, whether it's a quality associate or anything of that sort. Why do you think Jack Welch at GE implemented the whole stigma of Six Sigma? What do you think he was trying to achieve at the end of the day?
But that was not a quality focus. That was more of a cost saving, variation reduction, right?
But what do you think the end goal of that whole thing was?
They saved a lot of money.
Of course, they saved money, but at the same time, it was focused on getting faster products to the market, ensuring the quality aspect of things. I mean, GE is still a pretty reputable brand out in the marketplace.
But 2006, they closed Salt Lake City factory. FDA closed that. I was part of that closure. So
that's why I used you as an example. You could have prevented it from happening, right?
That's what I'm trying to find out now in aerospace. So I'm just trying to look around different industries.
How to become a CEO?
I know. I started with automotive, worked in a medical device, now in aerospace. All across good quality systems. But still the mindset is that, hey, quality is someone else's job. And you can be a very good quality professional, but there is a glass ceiling to go up.
I have to say, though, the best CEOs I've worked with embrace quality. Yeah. So they may not be the quality professional, but they're buying in, and they're also part of that group. And so they may not have come up from quality, but they certainly embrace it.
Yeah, no, certainly. Without that, operations cannot go. But what I'm trying to say, is that that's the future. We all should be aspiring. We should be working together and making quality such a way that, some of us can become
CEOs.
Thank you.
No worries.
Anyone else?
CFO?
Hi, everyone. So my name is Steve. I've been in the medical device for a long time as well. So we discussed at the beginning a lot of changes happening in the industry. I think we've seen also a lot of change recently. First of all, there was COVID that happened, and all of a sudden, We saw a lot of telehealth getting into the market. Now we have ChatGPT going, and a lot of people are interested in AI, machine learning. So it seems that maybe the integration of these tools in the medical device, maybe pharma as well, is going to happen maybe a little bit faster than we originally imagined. Certainly, for example, telehealth, nobody thought it would be it would reach as many people until COVID happened. So I guess my question is, what kind of reaction do you expect from the notified bodies and the FDAs as more and more of these technologies are getting integrated into medical device, machine learning, telemedicine, and all these different tools?
I think the necessity is the mother of all invention. And I think that from a regulatory perspective, the need for fast development is here. And I do think that COVID really pushed that a lot. And we were talking a little bit earlier about a couple of different programs that existed during that time for the rapid acceleration of diagnostics. That's actually the name of it. And to be able to bring products to market faster. I think it's just the need. And I think that, waiting for technology is going to be difficult. And the more and more we develop, the shorter and shorter time we have to be able to get that to happen. And so, a lot of people think that the FDA's eyes are closed and that they're not ready to talk, but they're certainly there. And they've been there. COVID was good for them, actually, because it really developed a relationship with industry to be able to do that. So I think that's a necessity. And I think it's going to roll along. I think AI is turning out to be, AI is as good, I think someone said it, but AI is as good as what it learns, right? And so we need to keep learning and keep feeding it in order for it to be effective. But the FDA particularly is starting to embrace that and starting to see that that is the way to go. There's a lot of clearances that are happening, or at least looking at those technologies to be able to embrace them. And they're doing it, which is great. Yeah.
I think they've started it since 2021, September of 2021. Actually, I just Googled it. No, but in all reality, software as a medical device have existed for a while now, right? And I think what your context is from a generative AI perspective, obviously, as my colleague alluded to, there are going to be principles that are going to be shared. However, I think generative AI is everyone's responsibility, how you utilize it and how your companies protect you from misuse of it. So I think there's going to be a lot more scrutiny internally first, then looking from an FDA perspective as well.
Yeah, I'll just add that, but the reaction I think is going to be relief. And why I say that is because I believe the quality and the accuracy of what they're seeing and getting and reviewing as such is going to basically be more correct the first time. So there won't be a lot of wasted time going back and forth.
I was just going to say the same thing. To me, I see the huge advantage coming, right? It's a new industrial revolution. We're dealing in big data, and it does take time. And when we do learn how to take advantage of it, faster, more accurate, more effective, more efficient, more whatever, and consistent, and that's all good.
Good question.
Yeah, we probably have time for 2 more questions. Any other questions?
Thank you. My name is Gladys. I'm just finalized my regulatory affairs, master's in regulatory affairs.
Congratulations.
And I'm here learning. And one of the questions that I have is regarding the same thing, quality system, because all of you are talking from I believe, third-party perspective. And one of the things, I used a lot of green light materials during my school. And one of the things you've highlighted very well, what QSR needs are, and ISO 13485. And I just wanted you to talk a little bit about the challenges, because the other day I was working with some company and they were talking about, they don't have the system in place. They rely on third party. But I'm wondering, because a lot of 483s and a lot of recalls that I have come across, having working also directly with patients, is because of quality issues. Because most companies are not differentiating quality and regulatory, because they think when they are compliant, regulatory compliant, they are also quality compliant. So could you talk a little bit about those challenges in terms of why the management all the way, because QSR is really clear on how companies should set up their quality system. What are the challenges that they are not able to do that? And we see a lot of these warnings and recalls coming up.
It's a very deep question, right? I don't know that there's a simple answer for that. The challenge is doing right for right's sake, right? Inputs and outputs matching, and having good drivers for those inputs, in either having the knowledge to develop the inputs or have systems and tools to drive you to make sure you get the right inputs. And that's really what it comes down to. Do what you say you're going to do and do it the right way for the right reasons, with risk assessed throughout the entire process. So that's the challenge in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
That takes 10 years to actually probably master, but.
I would like to take a shot at it as well. So earlier on, I was mentioning reactive versus proactive. So when you're doing it for just regulatory bodies, you're being reactive, right? But when you're doing it proactive, to be able to take in-depth knowledge of the technology that is being offered, and you're doing it because you want to do it for all the right reasons, the benefits of the quality aspect just automatically shines through. So it depends on whether you're doing it from a reactive perspective, as you were mentioning earlier, or you're doing it from a proactive perspective.
I think there's another wrinkle to explore there too. At least with the population of people that I generally support and interact with, there is often this idea that, oh, well, we'll just use our CMO, and they have their 1345, we'll use their quality system. So I don't have to develop one because they have one. I'll just use theirs. And you can't do that, right? You can lean on theirs. You can actually make use of theirs, but you have to have your own quality system in place to judge theirs against, and to be able to go and say, yeah, what they're doing meets our expectations. We're going to go ahead and do it. But there's this like broad kind of executive commoditization of quality, and just saying, oh, it's just a thing. Somebody else can go do it. We don't have to build that inside. I think that also contributes to the problem a little bit, at least with like the very earlier stage startups. A big mature company knows different, but an earlier stage company sometimes thinks, well, I can just outsource this. I'll just get quality done, or I'll hire a consultant and they'll do quality. And if someone approaches me and says, do that, I'm like, no, we won't do that for you. We'll help you build it, but you have to do it. You can't outsource these things. That's not a defendable position when you're audited eventually.
I think the other aspect too is that the EU is helping a lot. ISO 1345 is helping a lot, because it's not just quality systems, and the FDA, 21 CFR has set up this way as well. It's not just quality systems, it's quality systems and regulatory. So there really is a knit together of those two things to happen. And one thing that we're finding is a lot more emphasis on the quality system supporting regulatory activities, which never happened before, or at least in my experience, it didn't happen before. Regulatory was sort of on their own. So that's really important, to be able to have those systems to be able to support and make sure that those regulatory things that are classically regulatory, are taken care of also within the quality systems. And you're right, if you have regulatory compliance, well, it doesn't mean you have quality systems compliance. Even if you, dare I say, and I'm sorry about this, ISO compliance, that doesn't mean you have FDA compliance.
Right.
They look at so many different things. So just by following the letter of the law with ISO is not going to get you through. And a lot in ISO is, do you have the paper? Do you have that thing that says it's supposed to be there? FDA is going to say, what decisions did you make? Did you make good decisions? Here's a scientific decision that you made. We're going to question that, all the way down to that really nitpicky decision that you made, as opposed to, you have a design history file and it's about that big. That's great. So FDA looks a little bit more intensely at that. Yeah, they're going to kind of stop doing that, except for cause. So there is that. But I think the blending of those two departments is really, really important. I've seen a lot of companies where there's a regulatory department and they're on one side of the company, and there's a quality systems department and they're on a completely other side of the company. That doesn't work. It definitely doesn't work. And so often I'll talk to regulatory people and, well, that's quality. They'll take care of that. And
Yep.
that doesn't work either. So there definitely needs to be a blend of those two things. The quality systems that are being written, at least under our purview, and the ones that we're seeing, the ones that work and the ones that are passing the muster of audits have that. And so that really is starting to become a lot more commonplace, hopefully, in all of these companies.
I mean, it's such a deep question, right, that Gladys, you asked, and we haven't even covered validation as of yet, and things where you could actually get in trouble, right? So
Yeah.
I think that could be a next topic for our next roadshow.
Absolutely.
I've been what?
Just a follow-up on that. So you say FDA does a little bit more QSR than 13485.
Mhm.
But now FDA is going to adopt 13485. Right? So
Right.
where is the things going? And then you have an ISO also, which is now more risk oriented 2015, and 13485 decided not to be there. Now this is also is risk. Now this is more risk than one. Where is the system going on? Like where is the synergy?
Yeah, and
Global harmonized task.
I have a pretty big mouth, yeah. I'm good. You all can hear me, right? I've got a pretty loud mouth. I think what's happening here is there is, I lost my train of thought while the whole microphone thing was happening. Sorry about that. I'm old. Okay, where's that going with 1345? I think what's happening is the FDA isn't just going to accept a certificate. We'd love for that to happen. It's not going to happen. They're looking at the audit records. And if they see anything in those audit records that they're concerned about, they're still going in. That's still a for cause situation. So while 13485 is going to be sort of the common backbone, I think you're still going to see some audits. Yeah, we need to have the resources to be able to do that. But there'll be BIMO audits, there'll still be PMA audits, there'll still be BLA audits, and that's not going to go away. And so the things that are indeed the higher risk are still going to be scrutinized. And I do think that the new regulations are really, they're helping. Because they're going to hold us to a higher standard, all of us to a higher standard. Yeah, it's going to be really hard. Yes, absolutely. And all of those IVD companies, I'm sorry, if you are self-certified and now you have to be a Class B product, that's going to be hard. And there's a lot of questions that are going to be answered, and there's going to be a lot of scrutiny. It's only going to make the industry better through a lot of work. I know.
Did we answer your question? Nailed it. All right. One more question. He was first. Sorry, guys.
Sorry, I have a big one.
Okay.
My name's Roger. I work for a small dental medical device company in Northborough. So I've been around quality a good long period of time in different industries, from oil field construction to manufacturing, you name it, manufacturing. But a question that I have that I've heard a lot today is culture. So, I mean, you said that culture is coming up from the school. I don't quite see it yet, because I've dealt with a lot of young quality engineers, and that, yes, they do have the tools that they're using, like cause analysis or whatever, but the actual mindset, like whatever generation we are, it's difficult to instill culture in an organization. I'm starting out with an organization now 6 months and have a quality department. So what is your best advice? Just a little, how can you get people on board? Say, yeah, a little bit of quality here.
I can tell you where it hit home for me, being a 21-year-old in the medical device field. I saw my first patient's family that got one of the very first implantable defibrillators back in the day. That's where it hits home. You were mentioning, basically, yeah, we could kill someone. Me doing something wrong could kill someone. And it doesn't have to be that extreme, right? It could be, something. So, but actually hitting home to everybody who comes in right away. Like you are basically increasing the quality of life for your mom or for your kid or for, either one of those cases. That's when it hit home for me.
Yeah, I think context really definitely is a huge driver, right? To understand what are we all doing this for sure. I think the other thing though is to walk the talk. And if you're in the quality realm, you can't blow stuff off. And you can't say, well, okay, we don't have time to do that, Kappa. Let's just blow it off and let's move along. That's not the quality culture. And so being particular, and that's okay, I don't need that. And being particular and being consistent, I think is huge in developing that culture. I do think we're in a different time of history because there's so much information available. It used to be we had to crack the book and look at the 21 CFR and figure out where the regs are. Now you can Google it. Literally, you can Google it. And so I think, to have that information, to put it in that context, as he had said, but also be able to be consistent with your response with everybody and show that it's important, and eventually that culture gets made. We do a lot of that. We do a lot of, we don't have a quality system. We've got the contract manufacturer is going to take care of our quality system, and really trying to get everybody to kind of march to the beat of that drum. That's hard, but you got to play the drum in order for that to happen.
One more thought on this. I mean, everybody's familiar with virtual environments now. You don't see people. So I still work in an office. I've worked in an office most of my life, and I've worked virtually most of my life too. Hotel rooms. But it's difficult sometimes to see that. It's once you get up above the director level, it's all about the dollars. And that's what he was talking about. It's about the dollars. And yes, it's good quality. We want to make the best product the cheapest way possible.
Sure. Yeah.
Sorry.
I was just gonna say, we're a pretty much virtual company, but we're able to do it though. So we bring customers to talk to the whole company and understand virtually, we're all online, to understand their marketplace and what they're doing to help improve the quality of life. And the stories are just incredible, and they get you, and you wherever you're sitting in the world, you can feel it, and you can internalize why I'm doing what I'm doing. And even though you're working virtually, you can still exhibit the behaviors, and every new hire that comes on board, that you have the opportunity to do a new hire orientation. That's where the message starts. The message starts that this isn't something that we pull off the shelf. It's not a ring binder. It's not once a year when a regulatory body's coming in to audit us. This has got to be woven into the fabric of how we do business for 8 or 10 or 12 or however many hours a day. You have to live it in just like the general culture within the organization. It has to be synonymous with that quality culture. It can't be held by an executive team. It's got to be held by every participant. You got to expect them to exhibit the behaviors of quality, that quality culture. And that's just how we work. It's built in, it's woven into how we do our tasks every day.
Want to add on culture. So it's more of like everybody said, but it could be very simple also. Like me and my team, and we all have probably must be having zero defect program. Now, when you say zero defect program, it really is zero. Can you achieve zero? No. Even Six Sigma has got 3.4 ppm. Now, how do you achieve? But the whole world is making zero defect plan. And I said, hey, that's wrong thinking. The culture, the mindset is that, how do you spell out zero? It's a Z-E-R-O. What does it mean? C means zoom, E means error, R means remove, O means origin. That's the culture. That's a simple thinking. Zero is not zero. It's a zoom your error, see the origin and remove it. So when you have a defect, when you have a kappa, when you have things, just zoom it. And that's the mindset. And if that's the simple mindset gets into every quality professional, I think we are there.
Some of the things we're talking about are great tactics. All of these things are good tactics. But if we don't, if you look at QSR, what is the most important part of QSR? And if I ask this panel, they'll probably all give me a different answer. But the one that I feel like is probably the most important part is management responsibility. And if it doesn't come from the very top, then it probably isn't going to permeate the culture, because Every medical device company has three legs. It's the safety and ethical, there's the legal, and then there's the money. Because every company, that money is the air companies breathe. They have to make money. Otherwise, they can't survive. But, so I'll just use Greenlight Greer as an example. One of our values is true quality. And we talk about that just as much as we talk about the other, being innovative and being fanatical support. So those are all things important, and we have to make money. But if it's not coming from the top, really, it's going to be a losing battle. I don't know, what everybody else thinks, but maybe we can continue this conversation.
Yeah, I think that's huge, right? I mean, if you don't have support from the top, it's never going to happen because you set the tone. I mean, organizational culture. When I went to school, I sat through organizational culture class and I was like, this is never going to apply. And then I started working. That's probably my biggest failure. But I started working and I was like, oh my gosh, really? The person at the top sets the tone for the company every time. So if you don't set that tone, it's not going to happen. I think with tools like Greenlight Grew, especially in our virtual world, even if we're all in the same office, having access to data, because you went management review, but I was going to kind of go data. Because I think that data is really important to quality systems. And I think that the more you have access to that data, yes, there's accountability. So that's part of the culture there. But also everybody has visibility in what's going on. So it's not just in my office, in my binder, on my desk, but it's everywhere. And everybody understands what's going on and everybody has access to it. And so the more that happens, I think the more you can build that culture too. So I do think that Greenlight and platforms like that really help.
So I think we're out of time. I know we have a lot more we could talk about, but everybody, here's what I'm going to say. This is what you need to do. Find the True Quality poster, get your picture next to it, post it on LinkedIn, tag your CEO, and let him know how important quality is. Let's wrap this up. Thank you. Let's have a networking session. We'll be back in an hour. 3:50. All right, come back. Thanks.